It's time for Northwestern Outdoors Radio, the award-winning broadcast covering fishing, hunting, and outdoor recreation throughout the great Northwest. Northwestern Outdoors is brought to you every week by Max Lure Company, producing a legacy of innovation since 1969, by Sportsman's Warehouse, America's premier outfitter, and by Loophole, America's optical authority. Also sponsoring the show every week is Shiloh Inn & Suites, offering affordable excellence throughout the West. Mardon Resort, the place to fish and hunt in eastern Washington, and the Wallowa County Chamber of Commerce, where nature is on display in Northeast Oregon all year long. And now, let's head into the field with your host, John Cruz.
Welcome aboard. I think you're really going to enjoy this week's broadcast because we've got such a wide variety of fishing and hunting coming your way from all four Northwestern states. We're going to start things off by chatting with Sam Lundgren. He comes at us from Missoula, Montana. He's the editor of the Backcountry Journal, a well-written magazine put out every quarter by backcountry hunters and anglers. Sam's going to be discussing an essay he wrote for the latest edition where he points out that all of us as hunters are really diplomats for our sport. Sam's got a lot to say about the changing landscape of hunting and public perception about our sport and how we can help ourselves by being good ambassadors when we're out in the field. Sam's also going to tell you a little bit about the Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, an organization I got introduced to last year and I'm really excited about supporting. From Montana, we'll take you to northern Idaho, where kokanee are on the bite in a couple of big lakes there. Lance Mers will tell you which lakes they are and give you some advice on how to catch these tasty fish during an extended max minute. From Idaho, we head to eastern Washington's Potholes Reservoir, which has been very crowded with both happy hunters and anglers this month. Mike Meisberg, the co-owner of Mardon Resort, is going to tell you about all the cast and blast opportunities available in October and November, and also let you know about some of the great guided trips they offer there as well. We'll head a little west and a bit north to beautiful Lake Chelan after that in north central Washington. Jeff Witkowski with Daryl and Dad's Guide Service has been having great success catching both Mackinaw and rainbow trout out of here this fall, and he's going to share some advice so you can catch some of these fish too. Sticking with fishing, or at least shell fishing, we've got news about razor clam digging along the Washington and Oregon coast, and then we'll head back to Big Sky Country, where we've got opening weekend antelope hunting reports to share with you from Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks. But before we traverse the Northwest, David Sparks has another edition of Sportsman Spotlight for you from the Northwest Ag Information Network. This week, David talks to an expert about the blue tongue disease epidemic sweeping through deer populations here in the West. He's going to try to figure out what it means to both deer populations and to hunters. Sportsman Spotlight is sponsored on this show by Nate Luther's Guide Service. Nate's the guide fishing out of that Seattle Seahawks colored boat on the Snake and Clearwater rivers at this time of year, and he wants to take you steelhead fishing this fall. Find out more by going to his website at nateluthersguideservice.com.
Blue tongue disease has hit deer populations in the West, and I talked with veterinarian Dr. Deborah Lawrence about it. David Sparks, Sportsman Spotlight. Are deer populations in jeopardy of being wiped out?
No, I think, judging from the number of cases that have been reported versus the deer population, no, probably not. It's going to kill a few, but I don't think it's going to wipe it out or anything like that.
Deer hunting is going on right now. Guy shoots a deer, and this deer is perhaps not symptomatic as of yet. Is there a danger to eating that deer meat?
I do not know, although if the meat is cooked, it should inactivate the virus. But if a guy butchers a deer and the insides don't look right, they should probably have somebody look at it before they eat it, regardless of whether it's blue tongue or anything. If the liver's all swollen or the lungs look nasty, don't take any chances on eating it, because if it's septicemic, it could be bacteria. A lot of people cook their deer meat kind of rare. I know I do, and I would recommend to anybody that was butchering a deer, if things don't look absolutely natural, normal, then I'd have it looked at before you eat it.
You've mentioned deer, sheep, you've mentioned cows. Presumably elk are at some risk as well.
Well, they sure could be. If they don't run in the same circles as deer, we haven't run into it yet. They run a different sort of terrain where apparently they're not as apt to be bitten by these infected insects. And I don't know if elk have a higher resistance to this bug.
This is David Sparks for Sportsman Spotlight.
Have you fished with Nate Luther before? He's the guide who's always catching fish out of his big boat painted in Seattle Seahawks blue and green. Nate grew up around Lewiston, Idaho. He has been fishing the Snake River and the Clearwater for as long as he can remember, and he wants to take you out on a trip where you can catch Chinook salmon to 25 pounds or steelhead up to 20 pounds. Here's how you do it. Go to his website, NateLuthersGuideservice.com. That's NateLuthersGuideservice.com, or give him a call at 208-503-9204. That's 208-503-9204 for an awesome Chinook salmon and steelhead catching adventure.
It doesn't matter what sort of adventure you're after, whether it's big game deep in the backcountry, a day of fishing out on the water, or an overnight in the great outdoors. At Sportsman's Warehouse, we've got the gear in here for what you need out there. Gear up for your next adventure at one of its Sportsman's Warehouse stores or shop online. Sportsman's Warehouse, America's premier outfitter.
Pheasants Forever is working hard every day to ensure there's more wildlife habitat for the future. Join the Habitat Leader and help create wildlife habitat in your community. Go to pheasantsforever.org.
Welcome back to Northwestern Outdoors Radio. I'm John Cruz. It is hunting season, and a lot of us out there love this sport. This is our favorite time of year, but the fact of the matter is there's a lot of folks that aren't necessarily into hunting. A man who wrote about that and what hunters can do to maybe change some public opinion is Sam Lundgren. He is the editor for the Backcountry Journal. It's a publication that is published 4 times a year by the Backcountry Hunters and Anglers out of Missoula, Montana. Sam, welcome to the show. Great essay you wrote, Diplomats of the Outdoors.
Thanks, John. I appreciate it. Glad to be here.
Sam, why don't you go ahead and tell our listeners, what's the premise of this essay? Why did you write this?
It occurred to me, as I said in the essay, we were at a fishing lodge out on the Bighorn River in Montana. I don't watch a lot of TV, but we had the Sportsman's channel on, and, there was a couple shows back to back that just really struck me the wrong way. There was one where this guy was just really, grating personality. He bothered me in the first place, but then they go off to hunt, and there's fences all around these animals, and right. I don't know where he was, but it was supposed to be in the United States. But first he goes and shoots like an oryx or something, some animal from Africa.
Sure.
And then there's a commercial break, and then he goes and shoots a big white-tailed deer. I don't know. It bothered me that they even called it hunting.
I see what you mean, because if we're bothered by this, and I am too, folks, I don't think this is hunting at all. And if you do, you may as well go to your local zoo and take a gun, because that's about the equivalent of what's going on here. But it's not just us that think that as hunters. This is what non-hunters flipping through the channel see, and they assume these days that that's what hunting's about.
That's exactly what bothered me so much. I was thinking, tons of friends who don't hunt, and a lot of people who look to me as like that one person they know who is a hunter. And I'm thinking, if people saw this, like in a vac, somebody sees this and perceives that as what I do, that's insulting. It's such a giant departure from what I think of as hunting. It bothered me so much that it kind of drove me to write this essay.
Well, I'm glad you did. And folks, basically what Sam's talking about is how we as hunters can be diplomats and ambassadors of our sport. We need to be, because the good old days are gone. It's not like 40, 50 years ago when the opening of deer season was an optional day to go to school, where kids would show up at the high school parking lot with shotguns and rifles and racks on their trucks. That just doesn't happen anymore. If you do that now, you're going to have a SWAT team descending on the parking lot. It's just a changed time. So, you kind of hit on this in the essay. The majority of people don't hunt, and a lot of people have no hunting heritage at all, do they?
That's entirely true. And where I grew up, that was completely the case. I had to deal with it my entire childhood, being one of the only people in my school who was a hunter. And I caught a lot of flack for that.
Right. And in point of fact, folks, Sam lives in Montana now, but he used to live on Whidbey Island. And you're going to be very hard-pressed to find a whole lot of hunting to be had these days on Whidbey Island in Northwest Washington.
Yeah, it's true. And the sad thing is, like, the hunting there is great. I did a lot of great hunting growing up. I mean, there's blacktails, there's incredible duck hunting and goose hunting. There's a number of pheasant release sites, which is one of my dad's favorite things. And there's a small community that's very dedicated to it and, tries to get along with everybody. But, I mean, as a kid, I would go hunting after school with, just one or two friends and doing everything completely legally by the books. Like I said in the essay, my dad's good friends is a local game warden, but people called the cops on me all the time. I had uniformed police officers show up in the duck swamps, blasting my name over a loudspeaker on multiple occasions, asking me if I had, shot towards a house. No, I didn't. Asking me if I had driven past a gate I wasn't supposed to. Nope. I know what the rules are here.
I'll tell you what, in some places in our country now, it is an uphill battle. But then again, that gets back to your article, Diplomats of the Outdoors. And you talk about some things that we can do to show that we are good ambassadors, good conservationists, and that we are part of this whole fabric of outdoor recreation and heritage that has shaped our country and shaped the West here. Go ahead and talk about that a little bit in terms of being a diplomat as a hunter.
I think the biggest thing is it's like being a diplomat in any other sense of the word. It's that when you're faced with opposition or, aggression from people who are opposed to hunting, you just need to be polite. I had people come scream at me a lot of different times as a kid, and I didn't know how to deal with it then, frankly. I would usually try to, just disappear into the woods and not have to answer their questions. But I think the biggest part is, just be ethical, really promote the idea of fair chase, that true hunting is all about the opportunity for that animal to escape you. That's entirely what it's about. It's about the challenge of it, the difficulty, the strenuous nature of the pursuit. It's not about shooting an animal. Right. I think that's the biggest misconception is people think it's a blood sport. It's about killing, and it's not about killing. I mean, ultimately that's the goal, but it's the difficulty of the pursuit and the time spent with friends and family out in the wilderness. That's what speaks to me about hunting. And I just think we need to do a better job to explain that to the general public, that it's not only about killing, it's not about the gore and the blood, it's about nature.
Sam? Couldn't say it better myself. Folks, you're listening to Northwestern Outdoors Radio. We're talking to Sam Lundgren. He is the editor of the Backcountry Journal. It's a publication that is put out by backcountry hunters and anglers. They're based in Missoula, Montana, founded, about 11, 12 years ago over a campfire in the Cascades of Oregon. Sam, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about this organization? I was introduced to them last year, and I've been very impressed.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, we're a young organization, like you say, and we're trying to follow in the footsteps of giants like Trout Unlimited and Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation and Theodore Roosevelt Conservation Partnership, all groups that we have great relationships with and work with on a frequent basis. But we're trying to take an ecosystem-based approach to conservation, not focusing on a specific species or a specific method of pursuit, because I think we as sportsmen often participate in many different activities. I love to fish gear for bottom fish in Puget Sound just as much as I like to dry fly fish for trout in Montana and bow hunt for elk and shoot ducks with a shotgun. So we're trying to gather those people who have a similar ethic, sporting pursuits, and we just really want to preserve our traditions and try to improve the abilities that we all have to hunt and fish. One of our biggest pushes is to keep public lands public. There's been a lot of legislation and all sorts of talk lately about divesting the federal government of public lands. Those are BLM, Forest Service, areas that we sportsmen use to hunt and fish, but are seen by, some number crunchers as potential money-making schemes. And there's a lot of people who would like to see those lands sold off to the highest bidder.
Not just number crunchers, Sam. We're talking about some high-profile politicians, too, like Ted Cruz, like Rand Paul. They have both called for privatization of our lands, our federal lands, like the Forest Service lands. In fact, Rand Paul even said, best case scenario, let's sell them to the timber companies. Guess how much access we're going to have if that happens.
Yeah, my stomach turned when he said that during the debate.
Yeah, we are running short on time, Sam, but before we go, let's give folks a website so they can find out more about backcountry hunters and anglers, and if they join, they'll start getting to read a little bit more of your stuff, too, in the Backcountry Journal.
Yeah, absolutely. It's backcountryhunters.org.
That's backcountryhunters.org, backcountryhunters.org for the backcountry hunters and anglers. I hope you listen to what Sam said. Get out there, be a good steward of our hunting tradition and of our public lands. Do the basics. If you find some litter, take one more thing out than you brought with you. Put out your fire, leave a clean camp, and leave a clean image of yourself as you go in and come out of the wilderness. Sam, thanks for sharing this with us on Northwestern Outdoors Radio.
Thanks, John.
Leupold Gold Ring Optics are built to perform at the highest level, shot after shot, year after year. Our rifle scopes, binoculars, spotting scopes, rangefinders, and more always come through when you need them most. That's why our American-built products have a lifetime guarantee. Or as we like to say here at Leupold, they are guaranteed for a lifetime of performance, not a lifetime of replacement. Find out more about our top quality gear and our lifetime guarantee at leupold.com. Leupold, America's optics authority.
Today's line of portable camp stoves from Camp Chef have come a long way from your father's propane stove, featuring matchless ignition, more cooking power, and in some cases a built-in grill or extra burner. Look for the complete line of Mountain Series stoves at your local sporting goods store or online at campchef.com. Camp Chef, the way to cook outdoors.
We're back with John Cruz on Northwestern Outdoors Radio.
It's time again for another Max Minute.
Fish on!
Brought to you every week by Max Lure Company. With us this week, Lance Mers. Lance, kokanee fishing. A lot of reports in the spring and the summer of great kokanee fishing all over the Northwest. But what's a kokanee angler to do in the fall?
You could still catch kokanee right now, John. In fact, there are some great lakes in Idaho, northern Idaho, that are actually really hot right now for fishing.
Okay, tell me more. Which lake should I be heading to?
Lake Pend Oreille or Priest Lake. They're slaying the fish out there right now. They're not turning colors. They're still a bright chrome. They may have a little bit of teeth on them, but they, like I said, they still haven't turned any colors.
Well, and that's beautiful country up there as well. So if you want to fish these big lakes for kokanee, how should we go about doing it?
I like to use a Max Lure Double D Dodger, and then behind that, I'll use also a Max Lure Double Whammy Kokanee Pro. It looks like a wedding ring. It acts like a wedding ring. It's got a smile blade on the top of it, but it's got two hooks that have no gap at all. So because kokanee have such soft mouths, that double hook is absolutely deadly for these fish.
What would you recommend for folks heading to northern Idaho at this time of year for bait? Are we still talking shoe peg corn or something else?
Try the shoe peg corn. That's always going to be a mainstay in kokanee fishing. But try something different too. Go with maggots. Maggots are great for this time of year. The hatch has already come on. They're falling into the water. Why not?
There you go. It's northern Idaho, Priest Lake, and Lake Pend Oreille. And the lure to use for kokanee at this time of year is the Max Double Whammy Kokanee Pro. Look for it at a sporting goods store near you or go online at maxlure.com. Hey, we're talking to Lance Mers today with Max Lure Company about a brand new lure that's just slaying the trout out there on area lakes. It's the Smile Blade Spin Drift Trout Lure from Max Lure Company. Lance, what makes this lure so special?
Well, we've got our Max Lure patented Smile Blade, our high UV components, and the Spin Drift hook, which gives it a great corkscrew action in the water.
There you go, folks. All three components help you catch more fish. The Smile Blade Spin Drift Trout Lure, only from Max Lure Company.
The road is calling you to experience one of Oregon's 7 wonders, the Wallowas. So grab your hiking boots and camera and capture the beauty and grandeur of Northeast Oregon's Wallowa County. Experience nature like never before when you saddle up and ride into the eagle-capped wilderness, hike the trails of the Wallowas, hear the wind rush through the bunch grass and view the wildlife of the Zumwalt Prairie, or ride the churning waters of the wild and scenic Wallowa, Snake, and Grand Ronde rivers. This summer, take the road that leads to wonders. It begins at WallowaCountyChamber.com.
Need a lightweight camp stove for your next adventure? The new Striker Series stove from Camp Chef is the perfect solution. 2 models of this single-burner stove let you cook using propane or isobutane. The heat ring technology built into the stove's cookware lets you boil water in less than 2 minutes. And like everything else in the Camp Chef line, the Striker Series stove is built tough. If you hike, paddle, hunt, or fish and cook while you do it, you're going to love the Striker Series stove. Find it at your local sporting goods store or at campchef.com. Camp Chef, the way to cook outdoors.
Backcountry hunters and anglers, the men and women working hard to keep public lands in public hands. Check us out at backcountryhunters.org.
And it's getting frustrating as I thought to myself, were they coming at all? I blew 3 quick blasts on my wooden goose call. Rain still pouring, it was getting boring. Then I thought I caught a sight of something soaring. A big flock of geese I could barely see. They were coming straight in, shaped like a V. I got myself ready, held my gun steady. A couple seconds more, oh, my hands are getting sweaty. I should wait a little longer, but what's the use? I put a finger on the trigger and bust the goose.
Welcome back to Northwestern Outdoors Radio. I'm John Cruz. It is time to head to Mardon Resort at Eastern Washington's Potholes Reservoir for our annual conversation about cast and blast opportunities. And I'll tell you what, there's a whole bunch of them. With us here to tell us more about it is resort co-owner Mike Meisberg. Mike, always a pleasure to have you on the show.
Good day, John. We're real excited about some of these recent birds that have shown up. Some of those late October pintails are showing, and we've still got a walleye bite that doesn't even make sense.
Well, we're going to break it down basically species by species on the hunt side, and then we'll transition to the fishing side. And let's start off with what got a lot of attention last weekend on the opener, duck hunting with a little goose hunting thrown in. You know, you're saying the October pintails are already starting to show up. What other local birds are hunters seeing at this time of year in October and early November?
Well, one thing that I have never had the opportunity was to enjoy dispatching a blue-winged teal. And we've had mention of that bird, which typically has migrated out of here by the opening of the season, along with the cinnamon teal.
Oh, wow.
Another sign of northern birds starting to show. I hate to say there's northerns here at this time. These birds are probably from up by Banks Lake, that far north. But we're seeing some nice groups of teal, some nice groups of pintail. We're not seeing those great big bull pintail with the 4-inch tail that everybody wants to put on the wall, but we're seeing some incoming birds. The locals have been a good effort, a good activity. We've had some shoots even good on midweek hunting on the weekdays. The northerns are just almost starting to come, and we're on the edge of that time when everyone is excited about waterfowl hunting in the Potholes recreation area.
Oh, absolutely. And I love going out there every year for the opener. It's always a ton of fun. And the other thing, folks, to consider is you're going to get some of those lessers down here, those small geese, if you will. They come down in great numbers. They start basically stage at Stratford and kind of go throughout the Columbia Basin. They offer some really good hunting for you in the early season, don't they, Mike?
Well, the lessers are pretty much local birds, and they're very much susceptible to the tricks, the guides, and we've enjoyed getting a lot of those. And early on, there were some cacklers. That's always a special day when you can get a cackler. But those birds have migrated away now, and they might come back if it warms back up again. But the goose hunting is something that you just have to see it to understand the joy that we've had with the Royal Slope area with all amazing crops, the good feed to hold them, and the numbers of the lessers. And then the big Canadian graders are not far away.
So that's duck, that's goose. This weekend, though, we're talking pheasant. Now, pheasant hunting really fell on hard times, but it seems to me that it's starting to come back in the basin, especially in public hunt areas like Winchester Wasteway and Frenchman's Wasteway. And if you can get permission to get on a field, you might have some luck, too.
Well, the farming practices have made it different than it was here in the 60s and the early 70s in the heyday of pheasants with the sugar beet. Now with circle irrigation instead of rill irrigation, the pheasants are getting rained on once every 12 hours. But there are some really nice opportunities for pheasants in ground that is near a year-round water source that has some fields right next to it. And that's been the key, as always, taking a dog busting into the bushes pretty good to find the pheasant.
All right, so we've got the pheasants, and let's talk about another bird. And this season's been open a few weeks now, quail hunting. Quail populations have just exploded in Grant County, and that's become a real viable hunting opportunity now, hasn't it?
We get a lot of people that are running around out here in this scrub steppe area looking for the quail. And it's always a little challenging for me to really get serious about quail when the senior citizens that come and go here are feeding them as pets. But there are lots of new birds, and they've hatched late. There may have actually been more than one hatch this year. It seemed to me like there possibly were two. But up by where we live, there's groups of 30 and 50 of them. And there's lots of areas down in the public hunting area in the sea lakes below Sullivan Dam. But what's really been interesting is see how these birds come and go in such big numbers. And this year we seem to have, the evidence that I've been witnessing, we seem to have a pretty good number of the quail in the area here.
Well, there you go. That is the hunting side of things. And folks, you're listening to Northwestern Outdoors Radio. We're talking to Mike Meisberg with Mardon Resort at Eastern Washington's Potholes Reservoir. Some great hunting to be had in October and November in this area. And there's some great fishing as well. The walleye fishing. Every fall, I tell myself it can't get better, and it keeps getting better. What is going on there at Potholes Reservoir?
The only way I can explain this, working with our Region 2 biologist, Chad Jackson, is that we are on a very high end on a cycle with these walleye, and the populations dictated by the Fall Walleye Index Netting Project, the FWIN study, have shown us that we are living the dream in terms of walleye right now. The samples on Banks Lake, on Moses Lake, and Potholes Reservoir are showing very good populations, 5 different age classes, many good fish that you can enjoy eating. And the joy of it is on Potholes Reservoir, Moses Lake, and Banks Lake, and all of the lakes on the Potholes Canal is the same limit of 8, a 12-inch minimum, and 1 walleye 22 inches or longer. So you don't have to be, calling your lawyer when you're out in the field, getting a little translation on the rule book. But we've really seen some nice walleye, and there's a very abundant number of 22 to 24-inch walleye in the reservoir. But we are just amazed at the 18 to 19-inch walleyes caught blade baiting and also using Rapala jigging wraps in some of the underwater humps. And it can be as deep as 72 feet or as shallow as 16 and 13 feet where you find these with your graphics.
Wow.
And what's amazing is when you see it, the walleyes are stacked on these points. It looks like a Christmas tree. They're just in good populations. And then another thing is while you're doing that, we're seeing some very quality yellow perch.
Nice.
The 10, 11-inch yellow perch has been just really amazing what we're seeing in regard to those using the walleye technique.
And folks, we aren't even talking today about the bass fishing, which is still a very viable option this month and well into November for both smallmouth bass and largemouth bass. And the trout fishing's picking up again off of Medicare Beach. I mean, this is a great reservoir to fish. And I'd like to talk more about that, but before we do, I want to talk a little bit, the resort we talk about all the time. And folks, it's a great place to stay, whether you want to stay in a park cottage, a camper cabin, bring the RV, even bring your tent or a pickup truck. There's places to stay there, a store, a restaurant, great dock to fish off, and of course, a boat launch. But I want to talk about the duck taxi and your guided hunting. Tell our listeners very briefly about the duck taxi in the minute we have left.
It's been part of Mardon Resort since the resort was created by Marvell and Don Spears. That's where the name Mardon came from in the early 50s. We take reservations and we take people out to the sand dunes on Potholes Reservoir and get them set up before legal shoot, get them comfortable and make them aware of their surroundings. Non-guided hunts, we require 2 people for safety, no singles on non-guided hunts. There's a boat there for you to use to retrieve your birds if your retriever is not doing the job. Or if you like to move the decoys. We don't let our customers touch the decoys anymore because we've been doing this so long that we've found how we can set them up for them to make a better activity. But a lot of guys still like to change the decoy set. The guided hunts are a little more extravagant. These kids now are 35 and 40-year-old kids running the duck taxi out in the sand dunes. They've really learned how to make it a nice outing. One of the things we pride ourselves on is making a duck kebab mid-morning brunch on guided hunts, and it's just a treat that we've got people that come from as far away as Texas just to enjoy the duck kebabs that we provide. But the field hunts, and those are much better after Thanksgiving. Field hunts are something that people have booked with us now for 12, 15 years in a row. We've even got a few customers that have been coming since the 70s. But they're just something that if you get in on one of those, once you see it, you just want to get back and try it again. With the northern nesting counts being at an extremely positive number for waterfowl, ducks particular, we have lots of cornfields that we hunt for geese. And as an incidental advantage, occasionally we get funnel clouds of ducks that come to the same field we're shooting geese in. It can really be a memory you'll never forget.
Absolutely. We are out of time, but folks, I've been fortunate enough to spend some time with Mike and the Blind, both on the duck taxi hunts and in the field hunts, and they are spectacular. Trust me on this. If you want to book a trip or just book a stay at Mardon Resort for your own do-it-yourself cast and blast vacation, here's the website. It's mardonresort.com. MardonResort.com is the website. The phone number is 1-800-416-2736. That's 1-800-416-2736 or MardonResort.com for your fall cast and blast getaway. Mike, thanks so much for telling us all about this on Northwestern Outdoors Radio.
Thank you, John. Always a pleasure, sir.
So go Wetlands are some of the most important ecosystems on Earth, but our wetlands are quickly disappearing. Find out how you can help. Join Ducks Unlimited today.
I'm gonna take you fishing, honey. You're gonna love it. Gonna get up before the sun and rise above us. Got a bamboo pole and a leaky boat.
Welcome back to Northwestern Outdoors Radio. Let's start off with some field reports. If you're wondering how antelope hunters are making out in Montana this year, I've got some info from Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks that may shed some light on that. Enforcement staff ran an antelope check station along I-15 near Kidd in southwest Montana the weekend of October 10th. Despite strong winds, hunter success for the first weekend of the season was at 61%, with 126 antelope checked in. That's up from the 90 speed goats checked in last year, so that's good news. Moving from Region 3 east to Region 5, things were not so rosy for opening day weekend hunters. Hot temperatures on Saturday and high winds on Sunday made for difficult hunting conditions in south central Montana. At Big Timber, biologists checked 246 hunters with 144 harvested antelope. Over the past 10 years, an average of 256 hunters have checked 157 antelope at Big Timber, so this was a little disappointing. Things were at least as good as last year at Broadview, where Fish, Wildlife, and Parks checked 205 hunters with 58 antelope, which is exactly how many antelope were harvested at this time last year. However, these numbers are less than the 25-year average. Statistically, over the past 25 years, an average of 253 hunters with 170 harvested antelope have stopped at the Broadview check station on the opening weekend of the rifle season. Finally, at Billings, personnel checked 52 antelope from 105 antelope hunters, and this is better than last year when only 36 antelope were brought in, but the number of hunters in the field was down. By the way, it's not that the antelope were not out there. Biologists and hunters alike both reported seeing good numbers of antelope, and their numbers appear to be stabilizing or on the rise in south central and western Montana. It appears it's just the weather that's making things difficult, or at least did during the opening weekend. Hunters are reminded that they must stop at any check station they pass while hunting, whether or not they have harvested game. Antelope season runs through November 8th. Turning from big game to shellfish, razor clam seasons are being delayed this fall on the Washington and Oregon coastlines because they're toxic. The toxin in question is domoic acid. It can be harmful or even fatal if consumed in sufficient quantities. Unfortunately, cooking or freezing does not destroy this acid in shellfish. Since 1991, when the toxin was first detected on the Pacific coast, outbreaks have prompted the cancellation of 3 entire razor clam seasons in Washington, the last one in 2002. Because of this, the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife will not schedule razor clam digs on any of the state's ocean beaches until tests show the clams are safe to eat. If you're like me, you're probably thinking, no worries, I'll just head down to Oregon to go clamming. Well, that's not going to work either. The entire coastline, from the Columbia River to the California border, is shut down to razor clamming for exactly the same reason. On the bright side, domoic acid levels on Washington beaches have dropped significantly since last spring when the department was forced to curtail digging early. However, they are still above the level set by state public health officials. Dan Ayers with the WDFW says if levels continue to decline, we could potentially open some beaches in mid or possibly late November. Until then, cross your fingers and keep checking the WDFW and ODFW websites for updates. Next on Northwestern Outdoors Radio, we got a fishing report for you from North Central Washington. We're talking to Jeff Witkowski. He's a Max Pro guide and also with Daryl and Dad's Guide Service. Spends a lot of time on Lake Chelan. Jeff, that Lake Chelan fishery for Mackinac, it's turned into just a go-to year-round great fishery, hasn't it?
Yes, it has, John. My customers average about 100 fish a month, and it's going strong right now. Some fundamental change. We average about 1 fish out of 100 over 10, but in the last 4 months, 24 fish for my boat over 10, with the biggest being 24-14.
That is amazing. 24-pound lake trout. And the record's right around 30, and it was caught out of Lake Chelan, right?
Yeah, 3510, our friend Phil Collier from Collier Tours in Wenatchee caught it. And if you want to see it, it's mounted in his store. He's invited me several times, but I can't look at it. I'm too jealous.
Well, let's talk about how to catch these fish, especially in the fall. What's the drill? What part of this 55-mile lake on Lake Chelan are you fishing, and how are you catching the fish?
Right now, and over 12 years, it's transitioning into the winter pattern. The fish are in the spawn, coming into it, and we fish what we call the trench, which is down at Rocky Point from Minneapolis, a line directly across Down Lake. What I call the barrens, and my customers always say that's not very encouraging. I never mark fish in the barrens, but I've caught thousands of fish in there. They're just outside the sonar cone. And boy, the last few state records have come from up by the yacht club and what we call Collier Ledge now because of Phil.
Sure. So you're using a downrigger. How deep are you fishing, and what sort of setup are you fishing this time of year?
Right now, we're fishing, well, as always, we fish within 3 feet of the bottom. We call it fishing by braille. We zip that cannonball into the bottom till it bangs and come up 1 to 3 feet, constantly adjusting the gear. Winter pattern dictates 200 to 350 feet. The mysis move deeper in the winter. So again, it's critical to maintain that constant contour within 1 to 3 feet.
And what kind of actual lure or bait do you like to use?
Oh, I've been experimenting over the years. Max Lure Cha-Cha Squitter has caught hundreds and hundreds of fish on my boat. But in the last couple of years, I've been experimenting with a slimmer profile, a silver horde needlefish hoochie with a Max Smile blade in the front, and a new pattern I've developed over the last 2 years I call it the Jeff Drift. It's a Max Lure Smile blade with pill floats and Max tapered beads tipped with pike minnow. A lot of people have picked that off on my Facebook or on What's a Jeff Drift? Where can I get it? It's just an original fish catching rig, and if you want it, come up to my boat and ask me for it. I'll give you one.
Wow, that's awfully nice of you. So, Jeff, one other thing we got to mention. We've been talking lake trout here, but for those who, well, maybe don't have a boat or just don't have the gear to do this deep water fishing, I understand rainbow trout fishing's been pretty good over by Manson.
It really is, and this time of year, it's really good off the docks and throughout the winter, late winter into the spring. Simple slip sinker, ultralight trout gear is fine. A 3 to 3.5 foot leader and your favorite power bait. I switched to Power Eggs years ago because it's so much simpler and cleaner, and it's just as effective. Any of the docks, Manson, Mill Bay, Campbell's Dock, the PUD dock, it's traditionally very good for rainbows up to 5 pounds.
Nice. So, folks, there you go. Head on up to Lake Chelan. It's beautiful at this time of year, and either go trout fishing off the docks or in a boat over in the shallow waters, or try the more technical stuff and go after some of those lake trout. But I'd really recommend, if you haven't done it before, go on a guided trip and do it with Jeff. You can reach him through the website of DarylAndDads.com. That's DarylAndDads.com. They know Lake Chelan fishing like no other guides because they've been doing it longer than anybody else. It's DarylAndDads.com. Jeff, thanks for the great fishing report. Always a pleasure to talk to you.
Thanks a lot, John. Anytime. Let's go fishing.
It ain't much, but if you bail, it'll float. I'm gonna take you fishing, honey. You're gonna love it.
The off-season is a great season to visit Mardon Resort. Located in eastern Washington's Columbia Basin, you'll find incredible bird hunting, great wildlife watching opportunities, and fantastic fishing in a boat or right off the marina docks at Mardon Resort. Better still, off-season deals save you money when you bring your RV or stay in the hotel or wonderful park cottages. To find out more, log on to MardonResort.com. Mardon Resort, where the outdoor fun lasts all year long.
Have you fished with Nate Luther before? He's the guide who's always catching fish out of his big boat painted in Seattle Seahawks blue and green. Nate grew up around Lewiston, Idaho. He has been fishing the Snake River and the Clearwater for as long as he can remember, and he wants to take you out on a trip where you can catch Chinook salmon to 25 pounds or steelhead up to 20 pounds. Here's how you do it. Go to his website, NateLuthersGuideservice.com. That's NateLuthersGuideservice.com, or give him a call at 208-503-9204. That's 208-503-9204 for an awesome Chinook salmon and steelhead catching adventure.
Hi, this is Mark Hemstreet, owner of Shiloh Inns. Many of our Shiloh customers have been visiting our Shiloh locations for years, and here's an example of someone who wouldn't stay anywhere else.
Sometimes I go visit family, but most of the time I travel back and forth for business. And the best part is that I always travel with my dog Lucky, and he's welcome at any of the Shiloh Inns. I love their beds, beautiful rooms, really clean. The staff go out of their way to make me feel comfortable. Man, I'm telling you, at the end of the day, do I ever enjoy that pool and the spa. Plus, free breakfast. I love Shiloh Inns.
We invite all of you to try Shiloh Inns the next time you're traveling for business or pleasure. Call 1-800-222-2244 or visit our website at shilohins.com. Shiloh Inns, affordable excellence. American family-owned and proud of it.
Leupold Gold Ring Optics are built to perform at the highest level, shot after shot, year after year. Our rifle scopes, binoculars, spotting scopes, rangefinders, and more always come through when you need them most. That's why our American-built products have a lifetime guarantee. Or as we like to say here at Leupold, they are guaranteed for a lifetime of performance, not a lifetime of replacement. Find out more about our top quality gear and our lifetime guarantee at Leupold.com. Leupold, America's optics authority.
It doesn't matter what sort of adventure you're after. Whether it's big game deep in the backcountry, a day of fishing out in the water, or an overnight in the great outdoors. At Sportsman's Warehouse, we've got the gear in here for what you need out there. Gear up for your next adventure at one of the Sportsman's Warehouse stores or shop online. Sportsman's Warehouse, America's premier outfitter.
We're back with one last cast from John Cruz on Northwestern Outdoors Radio.
Let's run through some upcoming events before we go. The fall hunting sale continues at Sportsman's Warehouse stores, and the learning does too. That's right. They offer free seminars and classes on a regular basis for both hunters and anglers, and here's just a few of them coming your way in the Northwest. There's a steelhead drift fishing seminar taking place at the Kennewick store October 28th from 6 to 7 p.m. with guide Adam Geddes. There's also a steelhead fishing seminar with CCA representatives at the Lewiston store on October 28th at 6 p.m. The Clearwater Guiding Company is also involved with that one. If you're into hunting and want to learn about bow hunting, head to the Albany store October 29th at 6 p.m. for a seminar. And there's a duck calling seminar coming up at the Missoula store Saturday, November 7th from 1 to 2 p.m. And now it's time for your trivia question of the week. This fierce mammal is found in the northern Rockies, the Cascades, and recently in Oregon's Eagle Cap Wilderness as well. But it's a rarely seen predator. It's not as big as a cougar or bear, but those predators tend to stay clear of this short, stocky animal, which also happens to be the mascot of a well-known Big Ten college. What is the name of this mountainous woodland carnivore? If you know, give us your answer. You can do it on our Facebook page, Northwestern Outdoors Radio. Like our page, not the post, the page, and then just go to the post where we have this and give us your answer. Or you can go to our website at northwesternoutdoors.com. Go to our Contact Us page, give us your answer there. Either way, if you guess correctly, you're entered for a chance to win the $25 gift card we give away every week from Sportsman's Warehouse. While you're on the web, be sure to check out Reno Viola Outdoors. That's the home of WRVO Radio. We air on this internet station every Wednesday, 4 times every Wednesday, and we are part of a lineup of well over 30 outdoors radio programs that air 7 days a week. That website again is RenoViolaOutdoors.com. It covers all sorts of the outdoors all over North America. Check it out, RenoViolaOutdoors.com. That's all for this week. The fall weather continues to paint the Northwest with a beautiful mosaic of gold and scarlet and green. And if you are not outside enjoying the changing season, you are missing out. So until next time, take care, God bless, and make it a point to spend some time outdoors.
If you've ever been fishing in Mexico, you know how good it can be, and now you can fish there with the Real News. Take your choice of a trip to Baja's East Cape for roosterfish, marlin, and dorado. These trips are value priced, so you can stretch your dollars in fun. To find out more about fishing Mexico with the Real News, log on to therealnews.com or call 425-334-8966. Again, that's therealnews.com or 425-334-8966 for an incredible adventure.